The Empress of Shadows, the Black Halo Book 4, Shadows After the Gate was gone. The Watcher was silent. But silence is never the end. It is only the breath before the next storm. The spiral had survived the Architect's awakening. The throne lattice still stood, scarred but unbroken. Yet power this old never truly died. It lingered, like the echo of a scream still hanging in the air. The sky above Ebon Spire glowed, faint silver in the early light. Not natural light, but residue, left behind when the gate imploded. Valeris stood alone on the upper balcony, hair swept by a wind that carried no sound. The echo key hung silent against her chest. For the first time since she'd claimed the throne, it was not pulling, burning, or whispering. But she didn't trust silence anymore. Elias Kane approached, armor half unbuckled, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "Could have fooled me," he muttered. "Looks like peace." Valeris didn't turn. Peace is just a quieter kind of war. Inside the spire, the council reconvened. Not to fight. Not yet. But the air was fragile, like everyone in the chamber was waiting for someone to take the first step toward breaking it. Remnant keepers, Iron Shield commanders, and border governors filled the curved hall. Many were still shaken. Some were missing entire months of memory. Others remembered things that had never happened. "We survived," said a governor from the rim. "But the Watcher's whispers are still in our people. They dream of it." "What matters," one keeper added cautiously, "is that the throne held." Thrace sat at the edge of the chamber, her arm bandaged, eyes like sharpened glass. "The throne didn't save us. We did." The room went silent. Valeris stepped forward, no crown on her head, no key raised like a weapon. Just presence. "The throne is a wound," she said. "We just learned how to stop it from bleeding, but wounds don't heal overnight." In the deadline, the place where the Watcher's shadow had lived for centuries, long-range probes began picking up faint signals again. Not from the gate, from something left behind. Nyx's reconstructed voice came through the Wraith's commnet with a softness that didn't suit the words. "Strategos. Residual activity in deadline sectors, weak but organized." Elias stood over the map, tracing the points. "That's not random noise. That's someone moving." Thrace crossed her arms. "Watcher cultists? Maybe," Elias said. "Maybe something worse." The remnant keepers, the ones who had sworn loyalty to Valeris, now faced their own split. Half wanted to dissolve entirely, to let the blood fade into history. The other half wanted to build a new empire to prevent the Architect's return. "We cannot afford to appear weak," one keeper hissed. "Power is the only thing the Void respects." Another shot back, "And power is what almost killed us." Valeris listened, silent. She didn't stop them. They needed to reveal their fractures before they festered in the dark. When the shouting finally died, she spoke. "The blood isn't a crown anymore. It's a weapon, and we'll use it if we have to." No one dared to argue with her. In the med bay, Thrace stared at her reflection in the steel mirror. The faint silver sheen still flickered in the whites of her eyes. The Watcher's voice was gone, but the echo wasn't. "Still in there," she muttered. A medic nearby shifted uneasily. Thrace turned toward him, smirked without humor. "Relax. If I turn into a monster, I'll shoot myself first." But when she was alone, her hand trembled. The Architect had left a scar in her mind, one she wasn't sure she could outrun. Ghost Legion operatives under Elias's command intercepted encrypted transmissions from the deadline. They weren't Watcher signals. They were human. But laced beneath the human code were silver harmonics, a signature too familiar to ignore. Elias played the audio in the war room. "The Architect will rise again." "The blood failed. We will not." Thrace leaned over the table. "Cult." Elias shook his head. "More than that, organized, funded, and they've got access to remnant ship designs." Valeris closed her eyes briefly. The war didn't end, it just changed hands. Whispers spread through the spiral. People who once obeyed the throne now saw it as tainted, a relic tied to the Architect. Others saw Valeris as too dangerous to lead. "She's not the savior. She's the lock. She carries its blood. She'll bring it back." A rebellion was forming, not in open fleets, but in soft refusal. Governors delaying orders, soldiers questioning commands. Valeris wasn't just fighting a ghost, she was fighting doubt. In the middle of the night, Valeris woke gasping, sweat beading on her forehead. The echo key was warm against her chest, not burning, not whispering, but watching. A faint pulse, just one, echoed through her mind. "We left something behind." She sat up, breath sharp. What? The key was silent, but she knew exactly where it pointed. At dawn, Elias entered her chamber, already in field armor. We've got movement in the deadline. The signals aren't just static anymore. Someone's building something out there. Valeris nodded slowly. You'll take Ghost Legion. Thrace entered a heartbeat later, already armed. And me, Elias frowned. You're not fully cleared. Thrace shrugged. I'm not asking. Valeris's gaze met hers. If she wants to go, she goes. The wraith launched quietly into the black. No fanfare, no crown. Just a handful of soldiers heading toward the place where the universe's oldest wounds still bled. Valeris remained on Ebon Spire, the throne room quiet, the key in her hand. The architect was gone, but its remnants were stirring. And if there's one thing she had learned, the void never gives up what it claims. The gate was closed, but the void had never been empty. While Valeris held the spiral together with sheer will, the black between stars was stirring. And in the darkness where the Watcher's shadow once ruled, something else was building. The wraith slid silently into the deadline. Engines dampened, shields masked. Elias Kane stood at the forward viewport, Thrace at his shoulder. Her eyes still carried faint silver threads, not glowing but haunted. Nyx's voice whispered through the comm systems. Strategos, I'm reading multiple residual energy signatures. They're clean, too clean. Someone knows how to cover their tracks. Elias narrowed his eyes. Then they've done this before. Thrace checked the charge on her rifle, or they've learned from the best. Ahead, where there should have been nothing, a fleet floated. Dark, silent, no transponder codes. Remnant designs, rebuilt with foreign silver filigree pulsing faintly under the hulls. The Watcher was gone, but its disciples were not. Aboard one of the black ships, a broadcast began. No voice, no name, just a sigil. The architect's eye, split in half by a crimson line. Thrace stared at it on the console screen. Someone's getting bold. Elias exhaled. This isn't a cult, this is organized. The transmission shifted into a single phrase, looped through every open frequency. The blood betrayed the architect. The remnant will rise. Back on Ebon Spire, the political fracture deepened. Governors aligned with the new movement. Remnant hardliners whispered that Valeris's leadership was a blasphemy against the architect's will. She stole the key. She closed the gate. She will bring the wrath of the void. Valeris stood in the throne hall listening to reports, her fingers resting against the cold stone. The key was still silent, but its weight pressed heavier on her chest than any crown. The threat was no longer cosmic. It was human. Elias led Ghost Legion's infiltration pods into the underbelly of the largest ship in the hidden fleet. The corridors inside were made of remnant steel, but grafted with unfamiliar silver veins. The technology was a hybrid between human engineering and architect resonance. Thrace whispered over comm, whoever built this knows exactly what they're doing. Elias scanned the walls. They're trying to finish what the Watcher started. They found empty command decks, silent bridge stations, and ritual circles made of light, etched directly into the metal. Not just soldiers, believers. A distorted transmission bled through the ship's systems, projected into every corridor at once. A man's voice, young, fierce, burning with conviction. Valeris closed the gate, but the gate is not hers to close. We are the remnant. We are the architect's will. The bloodline does not lead us. It betrayed us. Elias's pulse tightened. Thrace clenched her jaw. They're building an army. No, Elias said softly. They're building a war. Back on Ebon Spire, a delegation arrived from the border systems, supporters of the architect loyalists. They didn't come as soldiers, but as politicians. Their leader was a woman, draped in dark silver fabric, her eyes sharp with calculated calm. Empress, she said, bowing slightly, you've closed the gate, but the blood was never yours to keep. Valeris's expression didn't move. Then whose was it? Ours. The spiral will not be ruled by a broken key. Thrace would have shot her where she stood. Valeris only smiled faintly. Then you'll have to take it from me. In the belly of the ghost ship, Ghost Legion discovered the core. Not an engine, not a bridge, a signal chamber, a spire of black alloy and silver veins humming at frequencies identical to the old Watcher signal. Nyx's voice crackled softly. Strategos, that's not a transmitter. Elias frowned. Then what is it? A seed. Thrace took a step back. A seed of what? The spire pulsed. The insurgent network called itself the Broken Eye. Their belief. Valeris had only delayed the architect's return, not defeated it. They saw themselves as chosen, the ones to reopen the path. They didn't just want the throne, they wanted the key. Valeris's name became a rallying cry, not as a savior, as a target. Elias gave the signal. Ghost Legion planted charges along the silver veins. Explosions thundered through the ghost fleet as the seed chamber ruptured. The insurgents scrambled, alarms howled, dozens of ships lit up in panic. Thrace sprinted alongside Elias through collapsing corridors. "We're outnumbered." He grinned, despite the chaos. "Good thing I've never liked fair fights." Their dropships launched into the void just as the first ships exploded behind them. The Wraith burned back toward spiral space. The ghost fleet was wounded, but not destroyed. Valeris met Elias and Thrace in the war room, reading the flames in their eyes before they spoke. "It's not just whispers anymore," Elias said. "They've got ships, money, soldiers," Thrace added, "and belief." Valeris's gaze hardened like a drawn blade. "Then belief is what I'll break." She turned toward the stars, the key cold and silent against her chest. The architect was gone, but the war for its memory had just begun. The architect was gone, but the world it had twisted did not return to peace. The broken eye, born from the ruins of the Watcher's faith, rose in the shadows. What began as whispers now burned like wildfire. They had ships, soldiers, and something far more dangerous: conviction. The war for the bloodline was no longer between gods and monsters. It was between humans. The attack came without warning. Iron Shield border outposts along the deadline went dark in less than 8 minutes. Sensor readings showed precision strikes. No messy rebellions, no chaotic mobs. This was military. Nyx's voice came through the war room comms, sharp and unflinching. Multiple outposts lost. Signals traced to broken eye vessels, their fleets organized. Elias Kane stood at the tactical display, jaw set like stone. "This isn't some cult waving flags. This is a war machine." Valeris stepped forward, cloak whispering against the polished floor. "Then we treat them like one." In the council chamber of Ebon Spire, the governors and keepers shouted over one another, fear burning hotter than loyalty. "They're attacking faster than we can respond. Half of these systems still don't trust the throne. We should negotiate, offer them terms before this becomes a war." Thrace slammed her gauntlet on the table, silencing the room. "They're not here to negotiate, they're here to burn us." All eyes turned to Valeris. The key hung silent against her chest. She didn't shout, she simply said, "Then let them try." Elias deployed Ghost Legion to intercept broken eye cells before they could destabilize spiral space. In the shadow of gas giants, his operatives took down signal spires growing like tumors. In the ruins of old remnant stations, they fought insurgents who believed they were holy soldiers, chosen to reopen the gate. Elias stood in a ruined corridor, smoke curling around him, blood on his gloves. Thrace stepped over a fallen insurgent, helmet under her arm. "They're everywhere," she muttered. Elias wiped the blood from his jaw. "Then we make nowhere safe for them." Back on Ebon Spire, Valeris reviewed the faces of captured Broken Eye commanders. Not zealots, not the lost. Former officers, former remnant elites, engineers, governors. One of them stared straight into the interrogation camera. "We don't want the architect back," the man said. "We want what it left behind." Valeris narrowed her eyes. "What did it leave?" He smiled, blood on his teeth. "Power." Thrace moved through the training deck at night, alone. Every strike of her fists against the dummy echoed like gunfire. The silver flicker in her eyes hadn't fully faded. She didn't tell anyone how often she still heard whispers. The Watcher might have been severed, but she carried its shadow. She paused when she saw Elias leaning in the doorway. "You're bad at being quiet." He smirked faintly. "I wasn't trying." She sighed, setting her gloves down. "I can still feel it, like something's waiting." Elias's voice was quiet. "Maybe it is. But it's not getting you without going through me." Thrace almost smiled. Nyx's voice filled the war room. "Analysis complete. Architect seed spires have been located on 6 more worlds, 4 inside spiral territory." Valeris's knuckles tightened around the table. "How long?" "Weeks at most before they activate." Elias leaned forward. "That means the Broken Eye had this in motion before the gate even fell." Thrace's jaw clenched. "They're not just rebuilding. They're finishing what it started." In the deep halls of the remnant citadel, the loyal keepers argued in whispers. Some feared that Valeris was repeating the past, holding the same throne that once belonged to the architect's hand. She's strong, but what happens when the key wakes again? We might be building another gate. Maybe the broken eye is right. Valeris overheard every word as she walked past their chamber. She didn't stop. She didn't argue. She just kept walking. The broken eye made its first direct strike. A fleet of 24 warships emerged from the deadline and hammered the rim world of Calvin, a symbolic remnant colony rebuilt after the Halo War. Iron Shield forces scrambled to defend it. Elias's voice thundered through the Wraith's bridge. All units, lock vectors on Calvin. Engage at will. Thrace strapped into her seat beside him, eyes blazing. Time to return the favor. Valeris stood behind them, the key glowing faintly, not from the architect, but from something older, something hers. The battle over Calvin was brutal. The Broken Eye's fleet fought with precision, not desperation. Their ships carried remnant technology but pulsed with faint silver threads, remnants of architect design. Elias led Ghost Legion boarding teams in low orbit, cutting down insurgents room by room. Thrace's gunfire echoed like thunder. They're fighting like they believe they've already won. Elias replied through the comm, then let's prove them wrong. Above the burning skies, Valeris unleashed the Iron Shield fleet. Her voice echoed through the comm nets, not as a goddess, not as the architect's heir, but as a commander. No gate, no gods, no surrender. Hours later, the last Broken Eye ship cracked apart in orbit. Their leader, a man named Corin Dahl, sent one final transmission as his vessel burned. You can kill us, but the bloodline will always answer the architect. Valeris stared at the flickering transmission. Then I'll keep it too busy answering me. As the flames faded over Calvin, she turned to Elias and Thrace. This isn't just a rebellion. It's a crusade. Elias nodded grimly. And crusades don't end quickly. The war was no longer hidden. It had begun. The Broken Eye's first fleet had fallen at Calvin, but their message had spread across the spiral. The architect's will endures. The key must return. And though Valeris had crushed their first attack, the war that followed would not be fought in the cold of the void alone. It would be fought inside the blood of her people. Thrace woke in the dead of night with a hand gripping her own throat. Her own. The whispers were back, not the Watcher itself, but something that felt like a bruise remembering pain. The blood never sleeps. We are still here. She staggered into the corridor, breathing hard. The silver thread in her eyes glimmered faintly in the low light. Elias found her leaning against the wall, trembling but standing. How long has it been back? He asked quietly. 3 days, she admitted. I thought I could shut it out. I was wrong. Elias's voice was low. If it's in you, it could be in others. She didn't deny it. Reports flooded in. Entire border systems began to riot. Broken Eye cells were everywhere, not just on the fringes. They'd been inside spiral space all along. Nyx's voice rippled through the war room. Coordinated strikes. Civilian ports, supply lines, data hubs. Elias traced the blinking red signals on the map. They're not trying to win battles. They're trying to bleed us out. Valeris stood at the edge of the room, her cloak pooled like shadow around her boots. Then we make them bleed first. The council chamber was louder than ever. Governors and remnant keepers hurled accusations like knives. We told you the architect wasn't gone. This war is your fault, Empress. Surrender the key, and they'll stop. Valeris moved to the center of the room, letting their shouts break against her like waves on rock. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet enough to make them lean in. You think handing over the key to zealots will save you? You think the architect would stop because you knelt? No. She turned slowly, looking each of them in the eye. If I fall, you don't get peace, you get chains. The chamber fell silent. In the empty hours after the council dispersed, Valeris stood alone in the throne room. The echo key hung at her chest, its silver-red glow faint, restrained. But in the corners of the chamber, shadows moved, not with light, but with memory. She saw Seraphine again, not a hallucination, a reconstruction. The architect had seeded too deep. You're holding a crown that was never yours, Seraphine's echo whispered, and the blood remembers who it belongs to. Valeris clenched her fist around the key. Then the blood will learn to obey me. Elias's infiltration network uncovered something far worse than a broken eye cell. One of Valeris's own advisors, Lord Kevrin, the same man who once argued for remnant unity, had been funneling intelligence to Broken Eye forces for weeks. When confronted, Kevrin didn't deny it. You closed the gate, he said coldly. You killed what made us strong. Valeris's voice was like iron. I killed a monster. He smiled faintly. And now you've left us weak. That's why they'll win. Elias didn't give him a chance to say more. He dragged him out in chains. Thrace sat in the medbay with sensors strapped to her temples. The medical AI struggled to identify the neural patterns twisting through her head. They weren't fully human anymore, not since the Watcher had left its echo. The whispers returned as she stared at the wall. You could end this. Give the key back. She slammed her head back against the chair. I'm not your weapon. But the whisper coiled softly, almost lovingly. You've always been mine. The broken eye launched simultaneous attacks on 3 outer worlds. The spiral's forces were spread thin, iron shields struggling to keep the lines intact. Ghost Legion intercepted coded transmissions from loyalist officers secretly aiding the cult. Elias barked orders across the Wraith's bridge. We can't hold all 3. Calvin's strategic. We lock it down first. Thrace secured her armor silently. She didn't need to say anything. He could see the war in her eyes. Valeris stepped onto the bridge, her presence cutting through the chaos. Then let's remind them whose blood built this empire. The sky above Calvin burned again. Broken Eye forces attacked in coordinated waves, their ships moving like they'd trained for this. This wasn't rebellion anymore, this was war. Elias led Ghost Legion's assault teams through the lower atmosphere. Thrace cut through insurgent units on the ground, silent and vicious, like she was trying to drown out the whispers in blood and gunfire. Valeris's voice carried across the comnet. No gods, no architects, no surrender. Iron Shield forces pushed back. In the heart of the battle, as the Broken Eye fleet closed in, Valeris felt the key thrum with power. Not whispering, not tempting, waiting. She could use it. Not like a tool, like a weapon. She looked out over the burning world, feeling its pulse in her blood. If she unleashed the key, she could burn the enemy fleets in seconds, but it would cost something. Every use blurred the line between her and what the architect had made her to be. Elias's voice cut through the static. Val, whatever you're thinking, don't lose yourself to it. Her breath was steady. I'm not losing myself. She raised the key. A crimson-silver wave erupted from orbit, slicing through the Broken Eye's fleet. Hulls split open in a storm of light. Engines died. Command ships broke apart in silence. The battle was over in seconds. But the fear in her soldiers' eyes afterward lingered. She wasn't the architect. But in that moment, she looked exactly like what they remembered. The flames of Calvin II still burned on the horizon. Valeris had won the battle. But the spiral had seen what she did to win it. The architect was gone. Yet its shadow lingered in her blood, in the key, in every eye that now watched her, not as a savior, but as something to fear. The aftermath was not celebration. It was quiet, suspicious. Elias walked through the landing bays as Iron Shield soldiers returned from the front. They saluted when they saw him, hesitant, unsure. No one spoke Valeris's name aloud. Thrace leaned against the hull of a scorched transport, helmet dangling from her fingers. They're afraid, she muttered. Elias didn't pretend to misunderstand. Of her. Of what they saw. She wiped out a fleet with a wave of her hand, Ely. Thrace looked down at her gloves. How long before they decide she's not the cure, but the disease? Elias said nothing, because part of him wondered the same. The council chamber filled with trembling voices and sharp tongues. She's becoming what she destroyed. This is how the architect began. She is the bloodline. A governor from the Eastern Rim slammed his fist on the table. What happens when she decides we're the threat? The debate turned into panic. A keeper dared to whisper what others feared to say aloud. The only way to stop a key is to kill it. The chamber froze when Valeris stepped in. She had heard every word. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Try. No one moved. She turned and left, the sound of her boots on the stone echoing louder than any argument. Thrace trained alone again, harder, faster, breaking the practice drones in half as if each of them wore the Watcher's face. But it wasn't the Watcher she saw, it was Valeris. Just for a second, her friend, her commander, glowing silver red like the thing they had all bled to destroy. She stumbled backward, chest heaving, whispers crawling like cold fingers around her mind. You know what she's becoming, and you're the only one strong enough to stop it. She clenched her fists until her knuckles split. No, she whispered, not yet. Elias met Valeris on the spire balcony, the stars stretching wide and cold before them. She didn't wear armor or a crown, just a simple cloak that did nothing to soften the weight around her. "They're scared of me," she said softly. Elias didn't lie. "They should be." She glanced at him, a small, sharp smile. "And you?" His jaw tightened. "I'm not scared, but I'm not blind." The wind stirred between them, cold and honest. The echo key had been silent since the battle. But tonight, in her private chamber, it stirred. "They will never trust you," it whispered. "You can build a world, or burn one, but not both." Valeris closed her eyes, breathing in the cold air of the chamber. She was not talking to the Watcher. The Watcher was gone. But the bloodline was still alive, and it was learning to speak without its master. A loyalist garrison on Velka 4 declared independence overnight, broadcasting allegiance to the Broken Eye. "We refuse to follow the false Empress," the message said. "The true will of the Architect will rise again." Iron Shield scrambled, but the rebellion spread faster than expected. It wasn't a fleet, it was belief. Thrace slammed her fist on the strategy table. She destroyed their fleet at Calvin, and still they spread. Elias nodded grimly. "Fear doesn't stop faith, it feeds it." Valeris gathered her generals in the war room. Two plans lay before them. Option 1, crush Velka 4 with overwhelming force, end the rebellion before it spreads. Option 2, negotiate with the Splinter faction, risk appearing weak. Elias's voice was low but steady. "If you burn Velka, every world on the fence will pick a side, and not yours." Thrace leaned forward. "If she doesn't, they'll see her as soft." All eyes fell on Valeris. The key pulsed faintly at her chest. She knew what they were really asking. Not about Velka, about her. "I won't be their monster," she whispered, "but I won't be their mercy either." In the black of night, Iron Shield moved. Precision strikes. No key, no bloodline surge, just soldiers, just steel. Ghost Legion cut the rebellion's command lines before dawn. By morning, Velka 4 burned, but only its war machines. The city stood. The leaders knelt. Elias walked through the ash-streaked corridors of their palace with Thrace at his side. "She didn't unleash the key," Thrace murmured. "Not this time." Elias's voice was quiet. "No, but she didn't have to." In the weeks that followed, whispers spread faster than news. "She could have destroyed us. She didn't because she's playing with us. We're living in her shadow." Valeris had chosen restraint, but restraint was not trust, and in the cracks between loyalty and fear, the Broken Eye planted seeds. Late at night, Valeris stood before the empty throne. The key hovered before her, spinning like a living ember. Elias entered quietly. "You saved Velka, but they won't see that." "I know." He stepped closer. "This war isn't just against the Broken Eye anymore." She turned her gaze to the burning key. "I know that too. The bloodline ends with fire." The key whispered inside her mind. "Or it ends with you." Valeris's hand hovered over it. She didn't touch, not yet, but the weight of power pressed harder than ever. The throne still stood. The war still burned. But the cracks were no longer only between fleets and factions. They ran through friendships, through blood, through the very heart of the spiral. Valeris had power. Too much of it. And everyone, friend, enemy, or something in between, could feel the ground shifting beneath their feet. It began quietly. Whispers in Iron Shield barracks. Unspoken glances in the council. Ghost Legion soldiers who followed Elias but no longer fully trusted Valeris. "She's too strong," someone murmured. "She saved us at Velka," another answered. "She could just as easily destroy us." Elias walked the outer corridors of Ebon Spire at night, listening to conversations through half-closed doors. Soldiers lowered their voices when he passed, not because they feared him, because they feared her. Thrace hadn't slept in days. The whispers were louder now, more coherent. No longer the distant echo of the Watcher, but something born from inside her. She sat on the floor of her quarters, hands pressed to her temples. "She is the gate. She will bring it back, and you will be the blade that stops her." Her breath came ragged, sweat beaded on her skin. She had fought wars, walked through fire, but nothing terrified her like her own mind turning against her. When Elias entered, she reached for her sidearm before she recognized him. Her hands were shaking. "Thrace, I'm fine," she lied. Elias knelt beside her. "You're not." In her private chamber, Valeris stood before the echo key. For weeks it had been quiet, like a sleeping serpent. Now it pulsed again, slow and heavy, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. "Your blood remembers what they fear." You were born for the gate. She exhaled. I closed the gate, and now you are one. The key's light burned against the walls, and for a heartbeat, the throne itself flickered, like something beneath it was breathing. Elias requested a private audience, no council, no soldiers. Just the two of them on the upper balcony, where the stars stretched cold and endless. You can't keep using the key, he said quietly. Valeris looked out into the black. If I don't, we lose. If you do, we lose something else. She finally turned to face him. Are you questioning me, Strategos? He didn't flinch. I'm questioning what's left of you. The silence between them was long, sharp, and full of everything they weren't saying. Far in the deadline, broken-eye ships gathered around a structure not seen since the Watcher's fall, an architect's spire. Smaller than the gate, less elegant, but alive. Nyx's voice came through the wraith's calm in a low, static-laced whisper. They've found something. Elias leaned over the holomap. Not found. Built. Thrace stared at the growing structure. Her skin prickled. She could feel it like it was inside her head. They're trying to wake it, she said softly. A Ghost Legion reconnaissance team disappeared near the spire. The insurgents had inside information. Someone had given them the infiltration codes. Elias slammed his hand on the console. We have a leak. Valeris's voice was calm. Too calm. Then burn it out. Thrace found Elias in the armory, checking his sidearm. Her eyes were sunken, but she stood straighter than she had in weeks. Eli, she said softly, I'm hearing it again. He froze. It's getting louder. It knows when she uses the key. It moves when she does. Elias stepped closer. You think it's the Watcher? She shook her head slowly. No, it's her blood, our blood. It's something we can't kill. Broken Eye forces activated the Architect's Spire. Across the spiral, every remnant bloodline, no matter how diluted, felt the pulse. People collapsed in the streets, clutching their chests. Some began whispering words they didn't understand. Thrace screamed as the echo in her skull split into two voices. One familiar, one new. Come home. She is the keyhole. Valeris stood in the throne room as the key vibrated violently against her chest. She didn't need reports. She felt it through every vein. They've linked it to me, she whispered. Elias stared at the tactical display. If they didn't destroy the spire now, it would tether itself permanently to Valeris. And if that happened, she would no longer be an empress. She would be the gate reborn. We strike it now, he said, even if she won't. Thrace clenched her fists. And if she tries to stop us? Elias's voice was steady, quiet, and dangerous. Then we stop her too. Valeris stood before the throne. The key's light flared brighter than it had since the day she closed the gate. She could hear it now, clearly. Why fight me? I am you. For the first time in years, fear crept into her chest. Not of the architect, not of the broken eye. Of herself. The spiral trembled beneath a rhythm it did not choose. The new architect's spire pulsed in the deadline like a second heart, beating in sync with the key at Valeris's chest. And though the people of the spiral whispered her name like both a prayer and a curse, she felt it too. The bloodline was answering a call. The war had stopped being about broken-eye ships. Now it was about who she was becoming. Thrace jerked awake with a scream, her body soaked in sweat, her vision fractured into two timelines, one real, one burning silver. She saw the spire like it was inside her skull, tall, breathing, alive. Every pulse from it dragged her closer, like a hook buried in her mind. Come home. Bring her. She collapsed to the floor, clutching her temples, blood seeping from her nose. Nyx's voice echoed faintly through the comms. Biometric instability detected. Elias burst into the room, catching her before she hit the ground. Her eyes flickered silver. It's pulling her in, she gasped. Eli, it's pulling us. He held her tighter. Not if I burn it down first. Elias stood alone in the war room, staring at the tactical display. The spire's signature pulsed like a heartbeat. He didn't call the council. He didn't tell Valeris. This mission couldn't wait for politics. We hit it now, he whispered. Ghost Legion's commander, Rourke, entered quietly. You're talking about a strike against a structure tied to the Empress's bloodline. Elias didn't hesitate. Exactly. Rourke nodded slowly. Then this is treason. Elias's voice was iron. No, this is loyalty. Thrace sat on the medbay table, wrists bandaged, blood cleaned, but voice unsteady. When Elias told her the plan, she didn't flinch. You're going without her, she said flatly. Yes. She'll kill you if she finds out. Elias met her gaze. Not if I stop this before it kills her. The whisper inside her head growled, trying to claw its way up from the dark. She will not forgive you. Thrace clenched her jaw. Then we better not fail. Valeris sat alone in the throne room, eyes closed, hands pressed to the armrests. The key burned. She could feel the spires pull like a storm current beneath the surface of her veins. You're the door. Stop fighting. Open. She whispered back, I am not yours. But the bloodline remembered, and remembering hurt. Under the cover of night, Elias launched Ghostly's Legion's dropships without authorization. The Black Strike fleet slipped through spiral space like smoke through cracks. Thrace sat at his side, helmet on, breath steady. You know this could end everything, she said. Elias smirked without humor. Everything's already ending. I'm just choosing how. As they neared the deadline, the spire flared. A wave of energy slammed through the fleet, not a weapon, but a call. Thrace screamed as her blood sang with the signal. Ghost Legion soldiers clutched their heads, some collapsing, others whispering words they didn't understand. She is coming. The gate remembers. Elias fought to keep the ship steady. Stay with me, Thrace. Through clenched teeth she growled, I'm not theirs. The Broken Eye fleet emerged from the shadows around the spire, more ships than expected, sleek and black, each lined with silver filigree like scars. Their leader, General Corindal, transmitted on all channels, the key will come to us, whether by her feet or by her blood. Elias cut the comm with a snarl, over my dead body. Rourke checked weapons. That can be arranged, for both sides. Back on Ebon Spire, Valeris staggered mid-step. The key flared bright crimson silver and pulled her to her knees. She saw through someone else's eyes, Elias's eyes. The spire, the fleet. Thrace screaming, and then a voice inside her chest. They betray you. They fear you. They go to destroy what you are. Her hand shook. No, they strike at the spire. They strike at you. Elias's fleet clashed with Broken Eye ships in the deadline. The void lit up with missile trails and the hum of pulse cannons. Ghost Legion boarded the outer ring of the spire. Thrace moved like a blade, every step tearing against the pull in her blood. We have to get to the core. She shouted over the comm. If we kill the spire, we break the tether. Elias's reply was firm. Then we cut it out of her. The Wraith didn't need an order. It followed its Empress. Valeris's ship tore into the battle, wreathed in silver-red light like the ghost of the Watcher's War. Her arrival made everyone freeze, Broken Eye and Ghost Legion alike. She strode into the spire's shadow, the key burning like a star. Elias turned, breath cold. Val? She looked at him, not as commander to soldier, not as friend to friend. As the bloodline. You shouldn't have come here, he said softly. You shouldn't have lied to me, she replied. The battlefield hung suspended between two wars. The one fought with ships and soldiers, and the one fought inside Valeris's blood. The spire had awakened. The Broken Eye believed it was their destiny, and Elias had gone rogue to burn it down. But the moment Valeris arrived, everything changed. Elias stood on the fractured platform at the base of the spire, pulse rifle in hand, the black void yawning below. Broken Eye troops swarmed the upper tiers while the spire's pulsing light threw harsh shadows across his face. Then she landed. Valeris walked through the smoke like a figure from an old prophecy, cloak billowing, key burning like a living sun. Her boots hit the platform with soft, deliberate steps. You shouldn't have lied to me, she said. Elias's jaw clenched. You were becoming what we were supposed to stop. I'm not the Watcher, no, but you're the gate. Farther inside the spire, Thrace pressed her back against the humming silver wall, every pulse of light crawling down her spine. The voice inside her head wasn't distant anymore. It was in her lungs, in her blood. She will open. You will be the blade. End it before she becomes it. She screamed and slammed her fist into the wall, leaving a bloody smear. Shut up! The voice didn't. It multiplied. Her knees buckled. She saw two versions of Valeris, one standing beside her as a friend, and one standing on a throne of silver light, the architect reborn. She whispered, "Which one are you really?" General Corindal stood at the spire's central bridge, watching the battle unfold with fanatic calm. "She's here," one of his officers said. Corin's lips curled into a smile. "Then the gate opens today." The insurgent fleet pressed forward. Broken Eye ground units flooded the spire's lower levels, chanting in rhythm with the pulsing light. She is the gate. The blood remembers. The architect returns. Elias and Valeris stood beneath the rising storm of the spire. Ghost Legion held the line against Broken Eye fighters overhead. "You can't control this," Elias said. "This thing is tied to you. The moment it finishes sinking, you'll be theirs." Valeris's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "No, I'll make it mine." That's exactly what Seraphine said before the Watcher claimed her. The key throbbed in her hand like it agreed with him. But she stepped closer anyway. "Then I'll finish what she couldn't." Thrace stumbled into the spire core, a cathedral of black alloy and liquid silver light. The air itself vibrated. The voice in her head wasn't whispering anymore, it was singing. "You are the blade, she is the lock. End her." She dropped to her knees, teeth gritted. Every nerve in her body screamed to obey, but another part of her, small, bruised but alive, remembered the woman who pulled her out of fire 100 battles ago. "Val," she whispered, "don't make me do this." The spire's heartbeat accelerated. All across the spiral, remnant bloodlines felt it. People clutching their chests, collapsing in markets, whispering in sleep. The key in Valeris's grip pulsed in time, the silver light bleeding across her fingers like veins. She gasped as the spire reached for her mind. Elias grabbed her shoulders. "Fight it!" She shook her head. "It's not something I fight, Leigh. It's something I am." Thrace raised her weapon. The whispers were screaming now. She saw Valeris walking into the core, light spilling behind her like a winged shadow. "Shoot her. End it now." Valeris saw the gun. She didn't flinch. "If you're going to do it," Valeris said softly, "do it while I'm still me." Thrace's finger hovered over the trigger. Her hand shook like a war. She screamed and fired, but not at Valeris. The bullet tore into the spire conduit, sparking a surge through the entire structure. The spire roared like a wounded animal. Architect resonance erupted through the decks, throwing Ghost Legion and Broken Eye soldiers alike to the ground. Corendale shouted orders, but the spire wasn't listening to him anymore. It was listening to her. Valeris stepped into the core. The key rose from her hand floating, and the spire answered. Elias burst through the broken door just as the light swallowed her. Inside the light, Valeris wasn't standing on the spire. She was standing in memory. The Watcher's design, the bloodline's beginning, Seraphine's scream, 1,000 voices asking her to surrender. "Be the gate. Open for us." She raised her chin. "No." The silver light bent around her like steel under fire. In the real world, the spire began to tear itself apart. Thrace and Elias dragged Ghost Legion soldiers toward the extraction deck as explosions ripped through the walls. Valeris emerged from the collapsing core, hair whipped by the wind, the key blazing red instead of silver. The spire's pulse fell silent. Corendal's voice crackled through the calm before his fleet scattered. "You can't fight what's in your blood." She whispered, almost to herself, "Watch me." The spire imploded behind them. The spire was gone. But its death did not end the war. It echoed. Through blood, through bone, through the forgotten threads of the architect's design, still woven into the spiral. Every remnant bloodline felt it, an invisible detonation not of light, but of memory. And for Valeris, it was something worse. She hadn't just destroyed the spire, she had taken something from it. Thrace staggered to her feet on the deck of the Wraith, ears ringing, lungs burning. For a moment she thought she was still inside the spire, but then she saw the deadline, fractured and scarred. The spire was a black wound collapsing into itself. Nyx's voice came through the calm, shaky but intact. "All systems are stabilizing. Architect signal, gone." Elias leaned against the railing, blood streaking his cheek. No, not gone. Because even from here, they all felt it. A single pulse that tore through the spiral like a heartbeat cracking open a door. Valeris stood alone at the forward viewport. Her eyes were still lit faintly red from the key's surge. The air around her hummed, low, dangerous, alive. Elias approached slowly. Thrace hung back near the hatch, gripping the edge of a bulkhead. They didn't need to say what was in the air between them. It pressed down like weight. "You survived," Elias said carefully. She didn't turn. "No, I changed." Hours later, reports flooded in from across the spiral. On Vesa Prime, entire remnant families collapsed in the streets. On Aura Station, a child began speaking in a language no one recognized. On Ebon Spire, the throne itself pulsed once, as if answering a voice they couldn't hear. Nyx's voice trembled for the first time. The spire's destruction triggered something. Elias muttered, "Yeah." The architect just rolled over in its grave. The broken eye fleet scattered into the void, but it didn't fall apart. It split. Half saw the spire's destruction as a betrayal and retreated into the shadows. The other half believed the key had fulfilled prophecy. "She has become what was promised," a broadcast declared. "The architect lives through the blood." Thrace slammed her fist into the table as the words echoed through the war room. "They're worshipping her now." Elias's reply was quiet. "Worship can be more dangerous than war." In her private chamber, Valeris placed the echo key on the table. It hovered above the surface like it always did, but its color was different. No longer silver, no longer the Watcher's whispering hue. A deeper crimson, threaded with black. Something new. "You took me back," it whispered, "and I took something from you." Her breath caught. "What did you do?" "I woke." Thrace stared at the ceiling of the barracks, unable to sleep. The spire's voice was gone, but the echo of it crawled beneath her skin like an itch she couldn't scratch. She saw the image over and over again. Valeris stepping out of the core with light burning behind her, eyes no longer fully human. "She saved us," Thrace whispered to herself. "She saved us." But the fear didn't go away. The council chamber was filled again, but this time the voices were more frightened than loud. The throne pulsed. "What does that mean? She's no longer human." Valeris entered in silence. The room fell quiet. She didn't need to speak to remind them who held the power. They saw it now, not imagined, not whispered. Real. A keeper finally gathered the courage to speak. "What are you?" Valeris met his eyes. "The only thing standing between you and the dark." No one dared challenge her. In the war room later, Elias and Thrace stood over the holomap. The broken eye's splinter fleets had reappeared in scattered systems. New spires, smaller but active, were being seeded. "They think she's the new architect," Thrace said flatly. Elias's jaw tightened. "Maybe she is." She shot him a look. "Don't." "I'm not," he said. "I'm just not blind." Valeris walked into the throne chamber alone. The key floated from her palm. The throne's veins of black stone lit up in matching crimson, pulsing like a synchronized heart. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was fighting it. For the first time, it listened. "They fear you," the key murmured, "and they should." She closed her eyes. "No, not like this." "Then give them something else to fear." A second pulse ripped through the spiral, not from a spire this time, but from the throne itself. Thrace stumbled in the training hall. Elias grabbed the edge of the command table as lights flickered. Nyx's voice cut through the static. "Empress?" Something just moved. Valeris stood at the center of the throne room as the pulse died. She could feel it, new veins of connection like threads between her and every remnant bloodline. And in the quiet after the storm, she whispered, "I didn't just destroy the spire. I became it." The spire was gone. The architect was dead. And yet the spiral whispered a single name like a prophecy. Valeris. Not Empress. Not keybearer. Not gate. Architect. And in the shadows, the broken eye no longer worshipped an old god. They worshipped her. Valeris stood before the mirror in her private chamber. Her reflection stared back with faint crimson threaded through the whites of her eyes, a quiet, unspoken truth. She wasn't just carrying the key anymore. She was part of it. "You wanted to destroy me," the key whispered softly, "and now you are me." She whispered back, "No, I'm something else." Yes, something they should fear. She turned away from the mirror before it could finish. Thrace hadn't spoken since the second pulse. She sat on the Wraith's lower deck, staring at her trembling hands. She'd faced armies, she'd fought monsters, but now the war was inside the woman she had followed for years. Elias found her there, silent. He didn't sit beside her, he just stood. "You're afraid of her," he said finally. Thrace gave a bitter laugh. "No, I'm afraid I'll have to kill her." The council chamber was a storm of fear. No one shouted this time. They whispered, like prey trying not to draw a predator's attention. "She's changing. She's no longer one of us. What happens when the key decides for her?" A keeper rose shakily to his feet. "We need a plan." Another lowered his voice. "There is only one plan. She bleeds like the rest." But even as they whispered rebellion, the walls seemed to hum with her presence. They all knew. She could hear them if she wanted to. Across the spiral, broken eye cells emerged like veins in the dark. Their new rallying cry wasn't the architect. It wasn't the gate. "She has returned. The blood no longer fights us. The key is flesh." Their fleets moved fast, coordinated, almost joyous in their fanaticism. The death of the spire hadn't broken them. It had baptized them. Valeris stood in the throne room, the key floating before her like a living flame. The throne's veins pulsed in time with her heartbeat now. No separation, no resistance. She could hear every whisper from the broken eye fleets, every remnant bloodline breathing in rhythm with her. It would be so easy to take control. Why fight them? The key murmured. Lead them. Become what they already believe. She whispered, that's the difference between you and me. You want obedience, I want a future. Then rule the future. Elias stood on the war deck of the Wraith, surrounded by tactical maps and intercepted signals. His team watched him carefully. If she keeps changing, Rourke said quietly, what happens to us? Elias didn't answer immediately. His gaze was locked on the red threads spreading across the map like veins. If she turns, he said finally, we finish what we started at the gate. The room went silent, not because they disagreed, because no one knew if they could. Thrace trained until the combat drones were nothing but scrap and smoke. Sweat poured down her face. The whispers in her skull returned, not from the spire, but from memory. Valeris laughing. Valeris standing over battlefields. Valeris glowing with crimson light. You are the blade, the echo said, and she is the end. She screamed, but this time no one came running. It came without warning. Not from a spire, not from Broken Eye. From Valeris herself. The spiral convulsed. Remnant bloodlines fell to their knees. Entire cities blacked out as neural interference slammed through every system. Thrace collapsed on the training deck. Elias stumbled in the war room. And in the throne chamber, Valeris stood tall, her hair whipping in the surge of invisible wind. The key was no longer whispering. It was singing. Elias stormed into the throne chamber, his face pale but hard. Thrace followed, bruised and shaking. The guards hesitated to bar them. No one wanted to stand between these three anymore. What the hell did you do? Elias demanded. Valeris turned, her voice soft but unshakable. I didn't do it. Thrace's voice cracked. Then what? She looked down at her hands. The light running beneath her skin pulsed like living blood. I think I stopped holding it back. Silence filled the room. Not fear, certainty. Elias took a step closer, and the throne responded like a living thing, a low hum shaking the floor. Val, he said carefully, whatever this is, it's changing everything. She didn't deny it. You're not just carrying the key anymore, Thrace whispered. You're becoming it. Valeris looked at them, not as Empress, not as friend, as something new. Then we rewrite the story, she said quietly, before they do it for us. In Book 5 Part 1, coming next, Valeris faces the rising Broken Eye cult that worships her. Elias begins building a shadow alliance to stop her if necessary. Thrace stands on the edge between loyalty and the blade, and the spiral must decide whether to follow their Empress or survive her.